Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of On the Road with the Fish Guy. I am Jay the Fish Guy, thanks for joining us. Today's episode idea came from a viewer, John, from across the pond in the UK. Thanks for the idea, John. So today we're going to talk about wet skimming versus dry skimming and the pros and cons of either. So first off, what does it mean wet skimming versus dry skimming? So for those that don't know, it's talking about your protein skimmer and how you have it dialed in and how much skimmate you're taking out. So when you have it set higher, more skimmate, more water gets dumped into the cup. It's generally a much lighter color and the cup fills up that much faster. It'll look more like a tea color versus when you're dry skimming and you have it set lower and it's just barely kicking over the edge. That's when you get that really lovely, dark, nasty, sewage-smelling skimming. So, what are the pros and cons of each? Well, let's start off with wet skimming. The general consensus with wet skimming is that you're taking more out, even though you're taking out more water, so you're skimming heavier, so to speak. I don't know if that's a great way to explain it, but your cup fills up faster, even though it's with a lighter colored skimmate. So you have to change the cup more frequently, obviously, if it's filling up that much faster. Some people feel that wet skimming will take too much out. You're actually stripping too much out of the tank. And I'll get to my opinions in a minute, but I'm just covering the basis of what the general ideology is in the hobby right now. So wet skimming, in theory, you're taking out more. The cup is filling up faster. You have to clean it faster, or more often, sorry. So that's your pros and cons of that. Dry skimming, it takes a lot longer to get to the point where the cup needs to be cleaned. You're pulling out this wonderfully dark, nasty stuff, so it feels good, like you're taking out a lot of sludge from the tank. The downside of that, if you have it set too low, even though you're still getting stuff in the cup, a lot of extra gunk collects in the neck. So sometimes if you let that go for a long period of time, your cup may not even be ready to be cleaned, so to speak, but inside the neck you have like a ½ inch of sludge, and it's almost like a dirty chimney as an analogy. It just keeps getting skinnier and skinnier, and less stuff is able to get actually into the cup, and eventually it just stops functioning correctly altogether, and you're wondering why your skimmate in the cup isn't doing anything until you finally clean it and go, oh, well, there's your problem. So that could be considered a downside to the dry skimming. Now, my opinions on either or. I usually don't worry about wet versus dry. I set the skimmer to a point where it's not collecting anything in the neck, and if it is, it's above the line where the cup meets the body, so that when I go and service the cup, I get to clean the neck out inside the cup, that, the piece that comes out, and I don't have to clean the body, and the majority of everything goes into the cup itself. Usually, I'll have most tanks set up to where they need to be cleaned once a week, once every 2 weeks, and that's a good rotation. I personally don't believe that wet skimming technically strips out any more than dry skimming. And why do I think that? Well, you're wet skimming, the idea that you're taking out more, but all you're doing is taking out more water. More water is getting into the cup. So to me, it seems like you're making more work for yourself without actually really any added benefits. Now, this is not based on any scientific studies or analysis. This is just my personal gut feeling for, a decade's worth of doing this, that it's not taking out any more sludge. There's only so much to take out. It may be a fraction more, but you're just taking out more water. I haven't noticed any visible differences to a tank, even in tanks where somebody's fighting algae issues. If they all of a sudden start wet skimming, it doesn't make the issue any better, and that's if they're only doing that. All right, let's change from dry skimming to wet skimming. It doesn't make any noticeable difference with water parameters or algae issues or anything like that, in my experience. So you don't need to do it. Set your skimmer in a way that it's not collecting in the body. You're not having to clean the cup every day or two if you're, overdoing it in wet skimming. And, just make sure it stays functioning. Consistency is best. So every week, get in there. If your tank is producing that much skimmate, clean the cup, clean the neck if you have to, put it back on, and keep running it. Don't mess with it. Just let it keep skimming and doing its job and aerating the water and all that good stuff. And focus on other more important things like water chemistry, making sure all your trace elements are where they should be, doing your water changes if you need to, things like that. That's far more important than worrying, is my skimmer running too dry or too wet? So take that for what you will. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.